Hospital Porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. Well, I'm off on another adventure. This time I'm going to Romford in Essex, and I'm going to see a demonstration by a medium called Jayson Harrington. So if you care to follow me. And this is the chap who is doing the demonstration. This is Jayson Harrington. Now, he is a transfiguration medium, and he's doing this. He's going to do a demonstration of transfiguration medium in a good strong red light. Now, this is something quite unusual in terms of mediumship, and indeed it's very rare. You won't see this done at your street corner spiritualist church. Jayson says that he's the only medium who's able to demonstrate this form of mediumship live, and he's demonstrated it on live TV in Athens, Greece. And he's very kindly contacted me. He actually approached me after he saw my excuse me, my interview with Gene Skinner, who is another transfiguration medium who sadly passed away recently. If you just see my I think it's Truth Seekers Northeast 4, which is where I do it. I'll put a link in the description box to that. And he asked me if I wanted to attend this event, so that's what I'm going to do. So wow, I'm quite curious and quite excited. Let's go. I just get off the coach now. I'm in London, as you can see it. The weather's lovely at the moment. Now, you know, do you remember what I said earlier about you know, not running for buses? I've said this on previous videos, that it's sometimes just best to go with the flow. And I did that this time because the bus stop I went to, the one at Oxford Brookes University, every time I go to that stop, every single time, I always just miss a coach every single time, right? And you may remember that from previous videos, like I said. So I walk up there, I always see one just pulling away, and I think, right, I've got to wait for the next one, which is not very long for the Oxford Tube. This coach here actually say all day, all night, all year. But I didn't rush this time. I didn't rush, like I always don't. And do you remember last time where I missed one? It ends up breaking down. Do you remember? And I had to wait for the next one, and if I hadn't got on the next one, I'd have been on the one that broke down. Well, this time, right, I just missed one, and I thought, right, I'll have to wait about 20 minutes or so, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, and then I ended up waiting just about 5 minutes, and then this one pulls up, and guess what? It's the Express. Now the Express is different. The Express is different. Like the Oxford Tube, Oxford London service is very good, but it goes every 10 minutes at the most, quarter of an hour, depending on the time of day. But it stops at Lucknow, halfway along the motorway, and at Hillingdon, or the western outskirts of London. The Express doesn't stop at either of those two stops, so it goes straight through from the Park and Ride at Oxford, right through, doesn't stop again until you get to like Notting Hill, which means it's a lot quicker. In fact, we probably overtook the one that I missed. So the moral of the story is, if you go towards a bus stop and you see a bus pulling away and you go, oh damn, I just missed one, I've got to wait now. Oof. It may not be as bad as you might think. It may be that you can get to where you're going quicker and more easier, a little bit less, more conveniently, from the very fact that you missed the bus you wanted to catch. Okay, I'm in Liverpool Street Station now. This is it. I don't have very long to catch my train, but last time I was here was 10 years ago. 10 years ago in a couple of weeks, because I went to the 30th anniversary of the Rendlesham Forest incident. It was less than that, because it was December, wasn't it? Because the 40th of this year. I just got to get on this train now. It's going to take me to Romford. It's here we are. I think I just got in just before the rush hour, in half an hour. This is going to be standing room only. Okay, I'm at Romford now in Essex. I've got to go and find my hotel, which is a travel lodge. It's not far from here. I think I'm going the right direction. And find something to eat. I'm hungry actually. Need to get some food. which, well, it's Essex, isn't it? So that's turkey twizzlers and dream topping for me, I'm afraid. I don't like those things, but that's all anyone eats in Essex. Okay, everyone, I'm at the Romford Travel Lodge to show you around. Same picture on the wall. You always get them. TV, I haven't switched on yet. And the usual sort of thing, you know. By the way, I think this is a pretty appropriate t-shirt I've got on. Dreaming Sauces, I thought I'll wear that. And in here we have the standard bathroom with a non-psycho shower. A lot of them have like the psycho showers you can't take down. Alright then, well, I'm just going to wait here for a bit longer, but I don't have that long to wait actually before it's time for me to head off. I've got to go back to the station and find my way to Emerson Park. From there it's a short walk to the venue at the Fair Kites Arts Centre. Jayson Harrington actually he changed the venue at the last minute, which is odd, and it makes me wonder what's going on. To give you a bit of background, if I didn't explain, or if I haven't explained already, if I have, apologise. Jayson Harrington, this guy, contacted me out of the blue. He's a professional medium. He's quite famous actually. If you Google his name, he's like been on TV a few times in Greece and other places. And he'd seen my interview with Gene Skinner. Now that interview has really caused a lot of people. I mean, to get in touch with me. It's been very, very popular. I didn't know at the time when I was making it, but it was the last interview Gene would ever give, and she died shortly afterwards. And I think I mentioned that previously. I think on my last Truth Seekers North East video, and of course, very sorry to hear that. So in spiritualist circles, it's quite an exclusive and it's quite a precious piece of work, and I'm proud to have done it. I really am proud to have given them that, and a lot of people have been in touch with me about that, and Jayson was one of them. He contacted me and said, I really like your interview with Gene Skinner. Do you want to come along to my event, he said, where he invited me to come along because he's going to do something similar. He's going to give a demonstration of transfiguration mediumship. And of course, I looked at my diary and I thought, oh well, I'm going to Hull the next day. So it's just the day before I leave for Hull. Tell you what, I hadn't booked my journey yet, so I said, well, I'll tell you, I'll do the two together. I'll come to Romford first and go from here to Hull, which is what I'm doing. It turned out to be quite easy to organise. So this is a video I'm filming in combination with another one, my trip to Hull. I don't know which one I'll upload first. You may have already seen my Hull one in that case, if I upload that first. Otherwise, that's coming up soon if I upload this one first. So he invited me to go along, so I'm going to go along. And literally last night, at about 10:30, he wrote to me. He says, Ben, I'm contacting everyone. I've had to change the venue. It's now going to be at the Fair Kites Arts Centre in I forgot what it was called. It'll come to me in a minute. But he said, you've got to get there instead. And so I thought, okay, because he has like his own venue. It's like the Jayson Harrington Spiritualist Centre, which is here in Romford. And I've got to get to this other place, and I wonder why. I wonder why he changed it at the last minute. I wonder if it's a security issue. I can't help wondering if this is kind of a little bit hush hush. Like if you've read my opening chapter of the Obscurati Chronicles on Ben's bookcase. There's a similar scene in there where a guy, he's at a spiritualist church, this character, and he goes off to his clandestine seance. And I'm wondering if this is something similar. Maybe there could be some security issue here, in which case that's a bit nervous, but exciting, and it makes me more curious, quite frankly. It does, because obviously if there is some sort of security issue, then it's probably going to be something a lot more important than your average spiritualist tinkering. I don't want to sound derogatory when I say that, but you know, I mean, the number of times I've been into spiritualist churches, and I'm a regular with spiritualism, and someone just sits there and goes, "Is there anyone here called John?" and things like that. I mean, I don't want to diss that, but it's low-level stuff compared to some of the other things that go on, the kind of thing that Helen Duncan goes on. I'm going to be talking about this at my presentation in Hull. So, what I'm about to see, I mean, what I hope I'm going to see when I go to this event very shortly, I'm going to be leaving very shortly, is a demonstration of transfiguration. So, as Jean was describing, the medium goes into trance and their face literally changes, their face and voice changes. And if I see that, it's going to be quite something. I don't think I'm going to be able to film it, but I will definitely, that's what I hope will happen. Whether it will or not remains to be seen, but you know, I keep an open mind for things like this, so I'm grateful for Jayson for inviting me. It's really good of him to do that. I'm going to head off. I'll just show you the view out the window, because I'm on the 3rd floor here, I'm on the top floor, and it's actually not much to see. It's a kind of alleyway. It reminds me of being in Swansea. So no cigarette ends down there, but there is some rubbish. Okay guys, so I'll be heading off shortly. Quite thrilling really. Finally, if you look at the plan for the hotel, right, these are all the rooms that are sort of arranged around here. Okay, you see these are all rooms, bedrooms. Now, that there is room 309, which is my room. It's kind of separated from all the others. Do you see what I mean? These are all around here, and there's this one little room sitting here on its own. I hope that's not because that's where they do the MyLabs. Otherwise, well, I'll be one of them, obviously. Look, I'm at Emerson Park now. There's some kind of strange conjunction there between the moon and a planet, Venus maybe, I'm not sure. And I'm going to head for... I mean, I don't know if I'm going the right way, but I'll soon find out. I'm going to head now for the venue. It's either this way or the other way. I'll soon find out. I just don't know what road I'm looking for. And I'll probably get there quite early, but that's okay. I tend to do that sort of thing when I'm going somewhere I've not been before. So I have a little bit of a wait, but not to worry. I've got Richard Dolan on my earphones, always passes the time that. And then we just wait for Jayson and the other people to arrive. He reckons it's limited to 20 places. So I'm curious to find out what happens. So we'll head there now. Q. Yes, QAnon is here. Where we go one, we go all. Trust our plan. Actually, it's the Queen's Theatre, as you see. So it's quite, apparently it looks quite grand actually, considering it's Essex. So that's where we are. We're actually here. The Fair Kites Art Centre. It looks like quite a big place actually, so I'm not sure exactly what part I've got to go into, but I think I'll go into reception, see what's there. There's another door there, so... But anyway, this is the venue. The billet. The London Borough of Havering, Fair Kites Art Centre. Alright, so we're back in London now, so yeah, Romford's on the border, so... Right, so I've got about an hour to wait now, so... hopefully I'll be able to get in there and keep warm while I'm waiting. If not, I'll have to stand out here. Either way, it's not the end of the world if I do. It's not that cold tonight. So, well, I'll see you later. Okay, I'm out now. In fact, I'm back in Romford. It was Hornchurch was the place where this, the Fair Kites Art Centre was. Jayson and his manager, they just dropped me off here. They gave me a lift back. I'm absolutely drained, I'm exhausted. In fact, I think the reason I'm so tired has got a lot to do with what's happened. What happened this evening, what I saw this evening. And basically I've been a part of for the first time ever, transfiguration seance. And I've made some notes. I'm too tired to talk about it now. I'm just almost back at the hotel now and I'm going to go to bed, and I'll have to say more about it maybe tomorrow morning or after that, because I can't really get my thoughts together now. But basically it was very, very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. And yeah, I'll say more later. Night night. Okay, it's the morning after the night before. I didn't get MyLabbed in the night, you'll be glad to know. It's a bit chilly in this room actually. I'm going to be heading off for Hull soon to do the video that you may have seen or may not have seen. I'm not sure. But anyway, I feel a lot better now. I took Jason's advice by having some sweet tea last night. Got some black coffee this morning without sugar, which I'm not used to. I've had a chance to think over what happened last night and feeling more in a sort of sense of, I feel more able to describe it now than I was last night. The event was held at this Fair Kites Arts Centre. It was a big place with lots of different areas. It took me a while to find the right location. Well, it's sort of in an adjacent building which is quite old. And when I got there, Jayson said hello. Jason's just quite sort of trendy looking guy, quite young, sort of spiky sort of hair, well styled. It's not your sort of average medium. Most mediums you think of as being sort of like women, sort of middle-aged or older, lots of jewellery on them, sort of like well-styled hair. So he's not your average psychic medium, Jayson, definitely not. He said, he said hello to me, and he says, "Oh Ben, can you go?" He was just setting up the room as where we're going to have the session. He said, "Oh Ben, could you mind going and sort of sitting in the kitchen or something for a moment?" He said, "I'm not being rude. It's just that if we're seen talking to each other a lot, people think we're planning this. We're planning something." And so I thought I was quite impressed by that, because it looked as if Jayson was concerned about evidence. It appears he was concerned about sort of evidence and things like that, and about gathering evidence and making sure that, in a sense, putting controls on the situation. So, say a psychical researcher would be impressed. Indeed, I think that's how he regarded me, and I suppose I am in a way. I am that very thing. Now it turns out there was nothing sort of illicit about the fact he had to change venues at the last minute. He had I think he had a bit of an argument with the people running the previous venue, and it was, I don't know how public this is. It's something to do with the Queen, I should put it this way, but I don't want to go into any more details because it might be something private that he only shares with his Facebook followers. I don't know. But after a while, I was sitting I sat in the kitchen for a little bit, for about half an hour, while he set everything up, and then some more people arrived, who I didn't know. So it's just local people who wanted to come along and are interested in spiritualism. And then the lady, his assistant or manager, I don't know what she is, she came and she took us into the room, and it had been set up like you might have seen spiritualist churches before. It's set up like an auditorium with rows of seats, but there weren't many people there. There were only about, I think there might have been 8 or 9 people, and he was expecting more, but I think it's because I don't know if I should say, but he had plans for that particular evening that he think might have discouraged people from going along, and so there were fewer people than he was expecting. Then he is very interesting. We sat and we talked for about 20 minutes, and he gave us a bit of an outline about what was going to happen. And he also said some very interesting things about the political situation. For example, he says that the Queen, he does not regard the Queen as a proper monarch. The Queen banned spiritualism in 1965. That essentially, he says spiritualism is the only true religion. The Christian faith in its traditional form, like Anglicanism, Roman Catholicism, is not real. It's not a proper religion. And he says things like, seances and spiritualism is very common among the elite. US presidents, when they get inaugurated, they hold a seance. And this is interesting because this ties in a little bit with what Cathy O'Brien and several other people have said about the occult issues within politics. And of course, you're familiar. You probably watched my video on Eyes Wide Shut, which I did recently, the famous film by Stanley Kubrick, which explores that issue, that element in enormous detail. But I said, oh, is this the Illuminati? And he said, no, there is no Illuminati. There's no Illuminati. It's all spiritualism. I thought that was an interesting comment, an interesting issue I'd like to explore with him, I think. And I've actually invited him to come onto the Hapanwo show on Hapanwo Radio, so hopefully I'll get an interview with him. He said, you know that Marconi didn't invent the radio, he didn't invent radio. And I says, no, Nikola Tesla did. And he said, no, it wasn't Nikola Tesla, it was Oliver Lodge. Now, so Oliver Lodge was a psychical researcher in the golden age of the subject in the SPR days and things like that, when the SPR was big, when Harry Price was doing his rounds. He mentions Harry Price a couple of times as well, or at least his guide did. But it's quite famous and well known. Oliver Lodge was into psychical research. He was also a scientist who worked closely with a couple of other famous people, including John Logie Baird, who is famous for inventing the television, which of course is there's one on the bloody wall. They're everywhere now, televisions, aren't they? Look, you can't escape them. When you say television, there is one there. You can't go anywhere, and wherever you say television, you look around. There's going to be a television set there, isn't there? It's like the telescreen in 1984, which is very interesting. But what's also interesting, I mean, Chris Everard talks about this in one of his Illuminati movies. Baird was also into psychical research and used his own electrical engineering skills to build various devices which we would today call ghost boxes. You may have seen these things for gathering EVP and things Don Phillips uses, Nigel Mortimer, Derek Savory, several other researchers use this method, that various electronic devices can be used to by spirits to communicate. You may have seen the film White Noise. That's very good. It's about a man who uses a TV set basically as a tool of exploration of spirits. You know that and Baird designed one of these things before he worked on the TV. And the thing is, the TV. What's interesting is the TV was kind of an adaptation of that original ghost box, which is quite extraordinary when you think about it. That the television, this square-eyed monster that dominates the minds of the modern world, is actually an offshoot of psychical research. Yeah, amazing that, isn't it? He said a few other interesting things. He explained, this is really weird, that Darren Brown is in MI5. Now, Darren Brown, interestingly, is like a big-time anti-spiritualist skeptic here. I mean, he's very famous. To be honest, he's a very clever guy, you know. I've seen some of his YouTube, and he is a clever guy, and I've covered him previously on previous videos. I've mentioned him on previous videos, and indeed on the Hapanwo Voice blog. If you ever read that, I've written several reviews of his things, such as the Apocalypse. That was some of it staged, like the Apocalypse, which was one of his so-called reality TV shows, which was actually a drama that he staged. Even though he says none of the people here are actors, everyone is all spontaneous. No, he's not. But he did this other thing called Seance. I'm not sure how real that was, where he basically debunked spiritualism. And Jayson talked about how this is all a psyop. Now, that fascinated me, because if you watch my previous Helen Duncan videos, you'll know I touch on this myself, which was the idea why Helen was not allowed to perform in court, which I'll be saying more about in my other video when I go to Hull, which is kind of where I'm going in a minute, which I may have uploaded already or may not have. I'm not sure which I'm going to do first. But see, Helen Duncan wanted to prove herself innocent by performing a séance in court. I can't get this bloody camera straight. That's it. By performing a séance in court, because she was accused of being a fake medium. And the judge says, no, you can't do it, which, of course, it's absurd to say, look, he's essentially saying that the evidence that could prove her innocent was not admissible in court. See, so I'm going to be touching on that in Hull. But I did briefly bring up the subject that perhaps there was an ulterior motive, perhaps the fact that if you start doing this, if you start allowing seances, you start allowing spiritualist contact in court, it would set a rather worrying common law precedent. And it was revealed publicly. First of all, they have to acknowledge publicly that there is a life after death. And they don't want to do that. Now, this goes beyond the mere conspiracy to put Helen Duncan in jail. And Jayson said that that's actually true. There is actually a cover-up of the afterlife, in the same way that there's a cover-up of extraterrestrials or cancer cures and other things. So in a sense we're allowed to believe in the afterlife as long as we do it via an off-the-shelf religion: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, etc. I don't think you include Hinduism in that, because they're a lot sort of stranger when it comes to things like that. But the other religions, definitely, the other three, the Abrahamic faiths. And he said that it's all suppressed, and then the only alternative to those Abrahamic faiths is basically atheo, skeptico, Dawkinsian, materialistic atheism. Those are your only two choices. And Jayson said that's a deliberate conspiracy on the part of the government, and I found that fascinating. And when I do interview him for Panmo Radio, I'm really going to pick his brains about that, because that's something I've been looking into as well. And I talked about, and I have talked about in my Skeptic video, about the network I think exists in the United States, which includes like Corliss Lamont and Paul Kurtz and these people who founded Psychop, James Randi, and this is actually a network effectively doing that in the United States. But if what Jayson says is true, then that's kind of going on here in Britain, with Darren Brown as a part of it. Now, if you look at Darren Brown, see how incredibly, I mean, he's a clever guy with his hypnosis and his mentalism and his tricks. His shows are really amazing if you get a chance to go and see them, but he's incredibly skeptical of spiritualism. I've seen interviews with him, and he lays into the, I mean, his pet hate is the spiritualists, and he lays into them, like no one's business. And he's in MI5, yeah. He said that Jayson told us that spiritualism is the only legal religion, or I don't know if you're lawful, which I think he touched on the common freedom on the land movement. I'm not sure exactly how closely it is to the freedom on the land movement or not, but then he began the Transfiguration. And this is, he says, okay, I'm going to start now. And the lights were lowered, and there was just two red lights shining on him. I described this in my Helen Duncan video, and indeed in the video that's upcoming in Hull. And he said, this is the how we. He explained that this is necessary for the spirit to emerge, and it is, I believe. Although skeptics will say it's just to hide tricks, but it's actually. He had, like, when we went in there, he had the whole place set up for his seance. The rows of seats. He had a seat at the front where he was sitting. Behind him was a black screen which he propped up on two chairs. And two chairs on a table, and he draped a black screen, like a black cloth over that to create a black screen. And like a good psychical researcher myself, when he wasn't in the room, I went and I had a quick look behind the black screen to see if he was hiding anything. You've got to always bear this in mind. I mean, a good medium will be open to being tested, for people doubting them and wanting to test their skills. Helen Duncan was famous for this. She went to extraordinary lengths, as you know, if you watch the videos, to prove herself real. So I went and had a quick peep behind the black screen to see if he was hiding anything, and he wasn't. There was nothing there. There was just a jug of water and some glass, and a glass or two glasses, which he and his manager were going to drink. But nothing else. So he wasn't hiding anything there. So he came sat on the seat. He was dressed in simple clothes, jeans, and a pair of shoes. He took his shoes off, actually, and was in bare feet, because, well, I'll explain in a minute. But then he said what he was going to do. He said, I can feel myself going under now. He felt himself going into trance. He wrapped like a black bandana around his head. He was wearing a black shirt, and this red light was shining on him. And then the manager switched off the light, and it was quite spooky. There was darkness in the room and this red light shining on him. And then he sort of went like that. You've probably seen this done when people are channeling and someone and the spirit walks in, and he says, and his voice changes, because he's like a kind of Essex Jack the Lad type voice. He normally sort of talk like that. He's a kind of Essex guy, you know. He talks like that, you know. Turkey Twizzlers, dream topping. That's all I want with me, mate. Put your leg warmers on. Get your ball earrings. Yeah, you know. He's like that, and then, his voice changes, and he starts speaking in a very. His voice went deeper. He was sort of speaking like a very. I will be introducing myself in a minute, he says, and he doesn't actually introduce himself, but he just said, hello, welcome everybody who has come here today. We are very pleased. We are very pleased to have you here. He's speaking this his quite deep voice with a posh Indian accent, I suppose you could call it. You know how like Asian doctor might speak, or Asian scientist or something. And he explains in this voice, and it's funny enough, his face changed as well. His facial expression completely altered. And he starts talking in this new voice about how we wish to carry out an experiment here today. We are very, very keen to interact with you in various ways and maybe bring forward your loved ones from the spirit world. And now, of course, the skeptic will say, well, how do you know he's not putting it on, Ben? How do you know he's not making it up? The answer is I don't. I can't prove that. However, I'm inclined to based on what happened next, I'm inclined to believe him. So what happened then was, he said we had to interact with him. We had to describe what we were saying. He said, "You have to tell me what you are seeing. It strengthens the energy." And indeed, what it was the energy from the psychic energy from all the people in the room was meant to contribute to the seance and make the transfiguration effect happen. And every so often he called someone forward to sit in front of him in a chair right in front of him so you could see him more closely, and he would ask them questions like as a clairvoyant medium does, you know, just you have a grandmother in spirit, do you not, and things like that. And then as this happened, then he said I would try to bring them forward in physical form, and then he would go and he would try to transfigure, and he'd go like that, as if at the end of that particular period where the spirit withdrew. Now, what you want to know is, did I see any transfiguration? And transfiguration is, as you describe, I'll put a link in the description box to, let me write this down. Notes. Write it down, Ben, or you'll forget it. Okay, B.G. Gene Skinner. The type that Gene Skinner describes in the background link, that is where your facial features change. It's kind of like a mask of ectoplasm on parts of the body or the face that they change. Now, what you're dying to know is, did I see that transfiguration of his face? The answer is probably no. I mean, I was sitting about 10 feet away, and maybe I wasn't close enough to see any small changes, I must admit. Some people were closer and they said they did see small changes to his face. I did not see any significant change to his facial features during this entire session. I have to say that, sorry about that, but that's what I observed. One more thing I should mention is that although, as I said, I didn't see any significant changes to Jayson's face, and it was his hands that really was where the transfiguration occurred, there were a couple of instances where I did perceive minor changes to his face, and one of those was when he was trying to channel a grey alien, as I think I explained, like the one at the skull experiment, where They actually channeled this grey, this what looked like a grey. They called him Mr. Blue, but he was actually like a grey. And what happened was Jason's eyes just went like that, not just open wide like that suddenly, but they like bulged out at the sides. It was only momentary. And honestly, in the low lighting conditions and in my maybe slightly suggestive frame of mind, I might have dismissed it as imagination if it wasn't for Jason's policy of telling us to shout out what we hear, what we see. Just say, hey, what are you seeing right now? I think this may be why Jason did this, to try and eliminate this factor of, oh, was that all in my head, that kind of thing. And the guy next to me, the guy who confirmed that Jason's fingernails were pink, he said, oh God, his eyes just bulged out a moment. Did you see that? So it can't just be in my head. However, his hands were different. But when it comes to his hands, it was different. Because it's not just the face that can transfigure, other parts of the body can transfigure as well. He held his hands out like that. And because we were describing, I think what's interesting is we were describing what we were seeing. So people next to me were describing and saying what they were seeing, and they were seeing the same thing. His hands did change. It was an extraordinary thing to witness. I still think to myself, it's very odd, but... And I was sitting close enough to see quite clearly that his hands were significantly changing. His hands were changing shape. The first time I saw it, I was pretty gobsmacked, I must say, to quote Stephen Greer. His right hand, which was on my left because he was facing us, the fingers lengthened. It's weird to describe, but they did. It's like watching like a CGI animation. His fingers lengthened and his fingernails grew about maybe a quarter of an inch, half an inch. Right. And so his fingers were stretching out. This index finger actually grew longer than the others. At one point, only half his hand seemed to change. And the index finger grew longer and thinner, and the knuckles were more pronounced. This happened several times. It was like that scene in the Snow White movie where, if you watch that classic Disney movie, where the evil queen turns herself into this old hag, and her hands, she says, look at my hands, and her hands turn from young, plump hands into old, wizened claws. It's like that. Slower. That happened several times. I could see it more on his right hand, because the left hand for me didn't change as much, because I was in the wrong place. It seems to be a very localized effect. And maybe if I'd been closer to his left hand, I'd have seen his left hand change. But for me, I was sitting close to his right hand. His left hand was on the other side of him, obviously. I was sitting to his right. He was to my right. And his left hand was partly obscured by someone else. The sitter who's sitting in front of the medium. And definitely his hands changed shape. At one point, his hands grew, they became like an old lady's hands, with veins on them, much more feminine hands, thinner at the wrist and the palm, and he held his hand's palm up at one point and they become much thinner. He tried to manifest one man once said that he wanted someone to come through who was his daughter who'd been stillborn, which is a terrible thing. It's happened to me. It's a horrible thing. And he said, I will manifest a baby's hands for you on the backs of my hands. He held his hands like that, and he said, I'll manifest the baby's hands. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. He couldn't do that. But at one point, his feet as well. I saw a similar effect with his feet, though not as pronounced, because he tried to make his feet change. It wasn't as pronounced as the hands. It wasn't as obvious as the hands. But his feet did change too. What's more, at one point, he was channeling a lady who had like painted nails, an old lady with painted nails. The colour of his fingernails changed to pink. And as I noticed this, someone next to me said, his nails are turning pink. It's very weird. As I say, it's not, I never saw rail service to Liverpool Street. Anything. I never saw anything that you're familiar with if you watch my video. Ilford. If you watch my video on Gene Skinner, I never saw anything like that with his face. If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or text. That was very odd. At one point, it was strange, during one of his facial transfigurations, which I didn't see, but a very, very powerful smell wafted over in front of me. Now, a very powerful, pungent stench. It was a very unpleasant smell, rather like, it was rather like bad breath. And it just momentarily, and it passed. It was very strange, like bad breath. And this went on for about an hour and a half. This séance. And then the guide, who was this wide old Indian sage. It turns out later he was actually a doctor from the Persian Empire, according to. This was before he said he was in the pagan days, before the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc., became so widespread. So this was like in the early Persian Empire, I think maybe before in BC times, because there was a Persian Empire in BC times. Alexander the Great did war against this empire. So this was several centuries before Christianity, before Jesus, and probably about 700 or 800 years or so before Muhammad and Islam. So Judaism was the only Abrahamic faith. And he said this doctor had been very bad in his time. He'd actually persecuted spiritualists, as they the people, as they were called back then, the whatever word they used for mediums and people who contact the spirit world in those days. Arthur Finlay, in his the book The Curse of Ignorance, is worth reading. Arthur Finlay's, essentially, it's a history of the world told through the realm of spiritualism. It's a very good book. It's a massive book, 2 massive volumes, but like Atlas Shrugged times 2. Imagine that. It's huge. But it's interesting, very interesting to read. I really was absorbed into it. So that apparently was his guide, and now because now he's in spirit, he was essentially he was working his way out of the lower astral by assisting spiritualists in this world. That's how he was undoing his karma. So I thought it was very interesting. And then slowly but surely, bit by bit, Jayson, he said, I bid you farewell now, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could remember every word he said, in this really deep, educated Indian voice. I bid you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Very polite, very friendly, telling jokes and things like that, humorous, he used to make jokes about things. I will now depart, and it's been wonderful. I wish to thank my medium, that's Jayson, for allowing me to do this, and for all of you for coming along this evening to be a part of this event. And very, very slowly, Jayson went like that. And then the manager went and switched the lights back on. He went, oh, it's like coming. It's like waking up after he says it's like waking up after a night of heavy drinking. I actually asked Jayson afterwards. I got to speak to him because he and his manager, they very nicely dropped me off. They took me back to Romford, it's only like a 10-minute drive. They took me back to Romford and I talked to him, and he said he doesn't remember what's happened. He's essentially when he's in trance, he's not actually conscious, and this was the case with Helen Duncan and many other physical mediums. They don't actually have any awareness of themselves. They essentially go into, they become unconscious. It's like having an anaesthetic when they are in spirit, when the spirit is occupying them. But he says he remembers the beginning and the end. So that was quite something. I'll have to check him out. I've seen him before, because when I met him, I get the feeling I met him before. Like, maybe it's a past life thing, I don't know, but maybe he was at the Oxford Church, I don't know. Maybe he's been on TV a few times. He's Greek television. He did a big thing on Greek television. He said that he was invited onto a TV programme to channel the Queen Mother in the presence of the Queen, and the Queen refused. And I didn't get the details of that entire story. That's another thing I'm going to talk to him about when he's on the Hapanwo show. So, that was quite incredible. I want to say thanks to Jayson for inviting me along, because he told me that they put this, basically he'd arranged this specially for me. I didn't know that, but he'd arranged this specially for me, this particular event. And he's invited, the guide actually said he wanted to bring us back for a future event. He also says that I've got to try and contact the people involved in the skull experiment. Now, that's something I've talked about in previous videos. I've read the book. If you want to watch the video of the skull experiment, there's like a documentary which you can read on, you can watch on YouTube. It's for free. The Afterlife Experiment on UFO TV. It's on YouTube. The book is really worth getting hold of. The book of the skull experiment. Do get hold of it if you can. It's fascinating, mind-blowing. I swear to you, it's absolutely really, really good. So I've got a feeling Jayson and I and the other people in the room will be meeting again, and we'll hopefully be able to do another event like this one. Brilliant stuff, brilliant. I'm back in this room. I didn't get mind-labbed in the night, I hope. Well, I don't remember being so. But I slept very well last night. I was absolutely exhausted at the end of it. I said to him, the guide actually told us, you may feel very tired after this, because your energy has been used to generate this effect and the presence of spirit in the room. Therefore you will feel very tired. And I did. I really did. And I slept like a log last night. And I'm quite a light sleeper lately. I've been suffering from a bit of insomnia. So that was quite something. Anyway, if I think of anything else, I will add it, insert it into this video. But I think that covers it all now. Fascinating stuff. Thanks very much to Jayson Harrington for organising this event, and I'm very honoured he did it for my sake. Thanks to everyone else who attended, and yeah, I look forward to the next one. I'll certainly report on that. Anyway, I've got to get to Hull now, to the Research and Witness Convention 2020, which you may have seen already. Thanks very much for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital reporters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order.